lot going on off the pitch at Chelsea, as there always is. It's always chaos. There's never a dull day. Obviously, Behdad Eghbali is co-owner, someone that's making the decision to let Maresca go, to bring Liam in. And Simon Jordan actually said on talkSPORT, when I see someone that's really, really good, and it's very rare because I see a world of blaggers and people that BS all the time, and people that will have you believe they can do things they can't. I think Eghbali is one of the most capable individuals I've ever come across, both commercially and in his vision for Chelsea and his understanding of what's required to own a massive football club. Matisse, what do you...
This comment irks me to the greatest degree. First of all, commercially, Chelsea don't have a front of shirt sponsor. Chelsea struggle from a business perspective to do the very basic thing that every club across the top 4 divisions has done, which is have a front of shirt sponsor, which is very lucrative and brings in a lot of money to balance your books and make your revenue a lot stronger. And we have had a very dicey kind of relationship with European football in the last few years in terms of not being in any form of it, and then in the Conference League and now in the Champions League, and still not knowing what form of European football will be in next season, which obviously impacts and influences the deals. But when you're world champions in the summer, you think that you're from a strong negotiating standpoint, you're going to be able to get a deal done, and you don't. That doesn't look good on the ownership or the people that are in charge of the business runners of the club. Sleeve sponsor was only just really, sorted a few months ago. And then in regards to the recruitment and the money spent, I couldn't disagree more with this point, because Chelsea mandatory were to spend $1 billion after Roman sold the club. That was within the deal. They've spent that in record time, and now they're facing UEFA restrictions, buy-to-sell situations, caught up in PSR, caught up in so many different things that are influencing the way that they recruit and what players they target and what players they don't. And until that really leads to success, I don't think Simon can really sit there and say it will. And maybe he's not speaking from a success standpoint, he's speaking from a business model standpoint. But like I said, from a business standpoint, we're not flourishing and we're not at our max potential. We don't have a sponsor.
He was saying, when he said that, he was saying about not just from a business point of view, but actually Chelsea being successful. That was his point. And I can't quite understand where he's got this idea from. What has he watched these owners do in the space of 3 or 4 years since they've come in that's made Simon Jordan think, apart from the fact he's met him a couple of times, that makes him think that this is going to work?
They're big, bold statements from Simon, and Simon does like a big, bold statement. Look, the proof will be in the pudding whenever we see, in the next 2 to 3 years, the problem we've got with the situation that we find ourselves in, Chelsea fans, I've said this for a while now, we are probably not going to know really, genuinely, how the owners really view the club and how successful this is going to be for 2 to 3 years probably from this point now still. Because these young players that we're buying in now, we've seen Noni move on, we've seen Jackson move on, they've made money on those players, excuse me.
I'd bring Jackson back, by the way, if anyone's watching.
Well, Liam might have something to do with that, who knows, but we won't really know what the model truly looks like. We can all have a guess, we can all think we know. They say they're looking to flip these players. We will know if eventually we do sell Palmer, Reece, Esteval, Casado, our best players. If they do move for profit, unless the player's forcing a move, of course, then I think we'll probably find out about where this vision is going. But right now...
Where do you think it is right now, then?
I don't know, Liv. Honestly, because the fact they're buying such young players indicates to a lot of people they're looking to get these young players, get the potential, improve that, get the potential and move them on. Well, there could also be a train of thought saying, well, get these young players growing, learning together, and in 2 to 3 years' time, when they are all of an age, when they are maturing, Cole Palmer is then going to be a seasoned pro, Casado, all these players, that they will have now hundreds of more games under their belt. And if that group of players can stay together and grow together, potentially in 3 to 4 years' time, some of these young guys will be 27, in their peak of their powers. And hopefully they all stay together. I don't know, Liv.
I'm not sure I can see this group of players staying together.
I think there has to be a time limit on when they took over to if we win that major, and we have to actually try and justify if that's the amount of time it should have taken to do that in the first place. Because they didn't pick Chelsea up in some... in the Championship. This is not Portsmouth, this is not Bolton Wanderers, this is Chelsea Football Club. So the starting point is not the same as what other clubs are. So you don't get the luxury of just taking your sweet time with it, in my opinion, and then claim it as a success. Chelsea have got a core of players that are quality, But Chelsea are not adding to that quality for multiple windows, back to back to back now. And that is why the level of the squad has remained the same over the last couple of years. We haven't been able to make that next jump to go and compete for majors because of the quality of the players that have come in over the last few windows have not been a significant upgrade on the players that have left. They sold a record amount of players in the summer. They then brought in quite a few players, and the differential between the quality in Jackson versus Delap, João Pedro versus Christopher Nkunku, etc., from a technical perspective, is not the gap is not big enough. So if you've got that core of players and they consistently keep you in a top 4 kind of zone, but you don't add the quality that is necessary because of whatever restrictions from a wage perspective, transfer fee perspective, even pulling power perspective, to the point where Mark Gurhies and Semenyo's will reject you openly and publicly almost, that they won't join your club. We're not talking about world-class players here. We're not talking about Vinicius Juniors and Mbappe's rejecting you. We're talking about Mark Gurhies and Semenyo's. If that's the cap that you've now created for yourselves, you're not going to kick on. You're just going to continue to keep kind of sitting in... Yeah, you're going to continue to keep sitting in that kind of top 4, top 5 zone. You might pick up the odd cup here and there, but that's not, in my opinion, a definition of success for this ownership. If they can't do what they said they would do at the start when they came in, which is take Chelsea back to the top and almost eclipse Roman, they were talking about from a commercial standpoint and a sporting standpoint. If they can't do that, then they've failed.
What is becoming more and more obvious every window now, we've gone back for the days of Koulibaly, Aubameyang and Sterling, buying ready-made, off-the-shelf players, seasoned pros, experience. We have moved away from that completely, and there is no evidence to suggest that we are going to go into the market for experienced, seasoned, someone you're buying that's ready-made, 27, 28, that knows the Premier League, that has won major honours. That player does not look like he's ever going to join Chelsea at the moment. And that I would love to see. And I've said this, John Terry in his pomp, Frank Lampard in his pomp, Didier Drogba in his pomp. You put those 3 players into this team now, wow. Yeah. And I don't think we're a million miles away. Genuinely do.
I feel like that's by design because that stops revolt. That stops people from really criticising them heavily because we're not that far away, but they never actually finish off the job. Exactly.
The
so they'll just keep you in limbo and keep you almost dangling the carrot. Chelsea are currently looking at centre-backs that are 20-year-old. They've signed left wingers that are 20 and 21 years old. They're not creating an environment for these guys to develop and really kick on, as we saw with the last batch, because we don't have enough experience, leadership, top-level world-class players in the squad to kind of hold their hand in a defensive centre-back partnership, take them and guide them through games in terms of an Olivier Giroud to a Tammy Abraham comparison in the striker line. It's kids going up against kids for vying for the same positions in most departments or key areas, and then they're selling them in 2-3 years, and then they're bringing in... but they're bringing in another player to replace them that will be 2021. And then we're hearing in 2-3 years Chelsea will be ready to go again. The point I'm making. They're resetting the clock.
If that happens, they do move them on every 2 or 3 years. We are never going to get to that point I'm talking about. I want to see Levi Colwill, when he's 27, 28 in an England shirt, play multiple games for England. I want to see Reece James continue doing what then you have got experience.
If you was Reece James, would you sign a new contract now? His contract runs out in 2 years.
18 months.
18 months.
He's got 18 months. Well, if he does that, watch this space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
that's a big one.
I think he's...
I don't know if I would have asked Reece James.
Well, he will be one of, if not the highest paid player other than Raheem Sterling at the club.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do something about that. Now, going back to the point I was making about where does this club... We need to keep Reece James. Let me tell you now, we absolutely... need to keep... Somehow we've got to come, sit down around the table, get Reece to sign a new contract.
But does this not tell you everything we need to know? That why are we sat here having this conversation thinking about we should be keeping Reece James? It shouldn't even be a conversation.
No, but you've seen what Trent did at Liverpool. There
That's different, though, I think.
Well, if he gets to 18 months, right, on his contract, and it gets to a year, you can't allow him getting to his last year.
No.
Because then he will potentially walk for nothing. We've just seen Mark Gurhies leave for a song. He's worth 3 times what Manchester City paid for him, right? We cannot afford... And one of the things I understand from the new owners when they came in were absolutely astonished, in a bad way, that we allowed Rudiger and Andreas Christensen, both 2 centre-halves, worth well over £100 million between the pair of them, walk on a free. And they could not get their head around the fact that the previous regime allowed that to happen. So I'll be stunned and amazed if they they allow Reece to have so much power without signing a new contract.
Well, we've got to get this done in the next couple of months because he's got a year in the summer.
Exactly, and that Reece James right now should be looking at the managerial upheaval, the lack of consistency in terms of that situation from there. And then also the recruitment. And I'm not trying to draw these players out, but if I'm Reece James and I'm seeing Liam Delap come through the door, Jamie Gittins, Garnacho, and now linked to Jacquet, a 20-year-old centre-back with less than 40 appearances at the top flight level, and I'm seeing centre-backs make mistakes constantly in that pairing next to me as I'm playing right back, moving into midfield, a midfield he shouldn't really have to step into after spending 250 million. Lavia's never fit. That balance should already be there. I'm looking at that chaos in defence, midfield and attack in all departments across, and then the management, and I'm thinking I've got a very short career and I'm a Premier League level winning player and Champions League multi-Champions League winning level player. I'm definitely not signing any contract until I see a different level of recruitment come through that door. And if there's not any accountability for these directors that have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds, made countless mistakes, then I wouldn't be signing that new deal, love for Chelsea or not, because the career is far too short.
And that's a fear. That's a big concern because you want, and you're right. Your career is not long in football, and players do want to see where am I going. If I sign the next 3-4 years, what does that landscape look like for me individually, and what does it look like collectively? And if Reece decides that actually this model, this project is not quite for me now, I've been part of it, and he decides to leave. Unfortunately, the club may well have to be forced to sell him in the summer. And I don't want to scaremonger about that.
That is wild.
No, because, like I said, they will not, from my understanding is, they will not, it won't happen again, what Trent did done to Liverpool and what Rudiger did to Chelsea, you're talking 60, what would he get for a year? I mean, God knows what he would get left on his contract with a year.
60,
but, they're not going to allow that money to leave on a front.
The way that they would want to move is from a business standpoint. They won't let that happen. But the snowball effect that would have on Cole Palmer, Caicedo and any other key player, seeing Reece James walk out that door would be catastrophic.